Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel where we love to talk about movies. Welcome especially if you're new. Here today we're going to talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. I saw this last night in the theater. I've had a little bit of time to process it. This was definitely one that needed some time to process exactly kind of where I landed on my letter grade. Ultimately I landed on a B. It's on the lower side of B. I was kind of hovering between B and C, but I think mainly for the implications that this movie has for the larger MCU and just generally being a fairly fun film, it got it up enough into the B category for me, even though I had some things that kind of fell flat for me on this film. But I think, yeah, so if you don't want to know anything about the film, I would say go see it. But I'm gonna talk to things that I kind of knew. Nah, we'll just do full spoilers. I think that'll be more fun. But that's my my upfront thoughts, and then from here on out, we'll dive into spoilers just so I don't have to kind of think about censoring what I talk about and not. But yeah, so we'll start off with the synopsis. So in this film, Scott Lang and Hope Van Dyne, along with Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, explore the quantum realm where they interact with strange creatures and embark on an adventure that goes beyond the limits of what they thought was possible. Pretty bland synopsis, kind of, but yeah, that's the synopsis. The kind of going through the characters, I think that's the main thing that I wanted to talk to you about this film. They were kind of hit and miss. I think some of them were done well and some of them not so well. I thought Scott, by now, they like the writers understand his character. I still I still kind of, it still gets on my nerves a little bit that Scott comes across as significantly more stupid than I think he actually is. But I feel like that's maybe just the result of being in the presence of people who are like super geniuses, like Hank, and like having been in the room with Tony Stark and Bruce Banner. But like Scott is still, he's got a master's in electrical engineering. That's more education than I personally have, and like I just have my bachelor's in computer engineering. So like it takes a good level of smarts to get a master's in electrical engineering, and Scott has that. Like he's a smart guy, and that came through in the first Ant-Man film, but it hasn't really come through since then. So that's, I don't know, that's a minor nitpick, but other than that, he remains funny. He's a very lovable character. He's, Paul Rudd playing Ant-Man, so you know what you're gonna get on that front. I think Hope, as usual for this franchise, I think her character is, I don't think they do her justice. I think the title of the film is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, but I would say the Wasp that they refer to in the title is more so Janet and not Hope, because Janet has a significantly larger role in this film. Hope is just kind of there. I think she gets. It's nice to see her at the beginning of the film when it goes through like what she's been doing, like with her life and how involved she is in this and that. But once the plot gets rolling, she's just kind of there, and I don't know. I think the writers just don't really know what to do with her character. They don't give her much to do, and I think that's disappointing because it's supposed to be her film just as much as Ant-Man's, and it really doesn't feel that way. And I feel like all the films in this franchise have kind of been like that. But yeah, so kind of disappointed that they can't do better with Hope's character. I think Hank is pretty typical Hank. He's also kind of just there, but I thought he had the best moment in the film when he kind of came through to save the day with the army of ants. That was that is what it took for me to believe that they were actually going to defeat Kang at the end of this movie. Because I'm like, they've set him up as this very, very powerful villain. He's gotten what he's wanted to unlock his power. So how are they even going to defeat him? And it's through a swarm of super intelligent ants. That was my favorite part of the film, I think. So gold star to Hank for getting that moment. Janet, I thought was interesting, but I like one of my nitpicks with the film is like, why was she on board with Scott going back into the quantum realm after the last movie, when at the time when they all got dusted and then he was stuck in there? And talking about it with the friend that I went to see it with, maybe she just assumed that that was fine to like go in and out for like 5 minutes and that wouldn't, send a signal to Kang. And so it was maybe very different that Cassie was like broadcasting a signal to the quantum realm. So I'll take that. It took discussing it after the movie though, but that was kind of on my mind the entire movie, as it felt kind of like a retcon. But I think it was nice to see Janet get kind of the focus of this film, and I think that's why I would say the Wasp that's included in the title of this film actually refers to Janet and not Hope. But yeah, I think Cassie is she's fine. I think they're trying to set up, younger characters, younger Avengers. I didn't think that she got enough character development to kind of make her stand out as a unique character. I think I think she's all about helping people and even in like protesting, like things that take the form of protesting and stuff like that. I think that's all really good, but it seems just kind of cliche and overdone, even though it's important. It didn't feel, I don't know, I felt like she didn't have a whole lot of identity other than just like, oh, I want to do something with my life and my dad isn't really letting me. I'm like, that's kind of typical teenager stuff in my opinion. So if you like her character, I'm glad. Like I wish I liked her character more than I did, but that yeah, I don't know, maybe they'll develop her a little bit more in another movie. But I didn't find her character all that compelling. But I think the best point of this film though is definitely King. We get a well, before we get to King, I thought MODOK was pretty silly. Other things as well, like a couple of the side characters. I think the side characters are hit and miss when they actually get down to the planet. Like the little like blob thing that produces the ooze that allows them to understand people. That was a really funny character. I thought they did a great job with him. But like some of the others, I thought weren't all that good. They were very stereotypical kind of side characters. That was kind of the main one that stood out. But MODOK was interesting. It felt like that was like a rough draft of the character, and they just threw in a bunch of like silly stuff, and it felt kind of similar humor to like what we got in Thor: Love and Thunder, where it was like somebody's like, "Oh, this would be really really funny," and it kind of is, but it seems like it's just one person's point of view of funny, and it seemed like it was at the expense of the character. Like I haven't read the comics, so I don't know. Maybe, but like my guess is that that's not what MODOK is in the comics. If it is, okay, then that's fine. But I was expecting something more out of MODOK than Darren from the first movie, and then yeah, I don't know. It was kind of silly, but like I don't know. At the end of the day, though, it did make me laugh. Like Cassie being like, it's never too late to not be a dick. He's like, I guess you're right. I cannot be a dick. But like, I don't know. It felt like it was maybe a little inconsistent with his character. Like I feel like the character we saw in the first film would not have gotten to the point of like fully acknowledging that he was a dick. I think he saw that he was doing the right thing and not just being a dick. So I don't know. I feel like they kind of changed his character a little bit to service the jokes. That's what feels a little cheap and silly to me about that. But yeah. So and then yeah, to kind of wrap things up with Kang, I think is the final point that I want to talk to. I think Jonathan Majors is great in this role. I'm super excited to see him as the main villain moving forward, and that's mainly what this movie is good for, is setting up the villain of Kang and getting a bit more of a glimpse of who he is, because we saw him first at the end of Loki, and that was very much just a glimpse. So I think I'm interested to see more. Like, who was this version of Kang? Was he just kind of a weaker one? Was he actually trying to be good? Is that why they outcast him? And is he just like, how much of a villain was this version of him really? We get to see some, but I think it's left up a little bit to interpretation. I think as the movie played out, it became a little bit more clear that this was a villainous one. But I think like halfway through the movie, I'm like, what if this is actually a good version of Kang and he's just misunderstood? But yeah, I think that's the biggest impact of this film, though, is just giving us an introduction to Kang, but is obviously one variant of him, so who knows how much like Kang this one is and how much different he is. But definitely got some like Rick and Morty vibes throughout this, just to have basically what's a council of Ricks, but you have a council of Kangs, and then like the probability storm that Scott got stuck in reminded me of the episode of Rick and Morty where they like keep splitting reality based off of all the possibilities that they're encountering and the indecision that they have. But Yeah, I don't know, Kang, it was good to get an introduction to Kang, but this movie seemed kind of pointless in the end. It didn't really have any character development other than MODOK or Darren. I think all the main characters, none of them had significant character development, which I think you kind of need in a superhero film. So there wasn't much of like an arc there. It was just kind of an adventure film and felt like a Disney made Star Wars movie at times for like the look and kind of the feel. But yeah, I think like nothing of consequence, because what they did was within the like context of the film, they introduced a villain that we had no idea was there before. Like we didn't know that Kang was a threat in the quantum realm, and then the events of the film happen. They defeat him, and then there's no repercussions and nothing moving forward from it. And like you could probably summarize a lot of movies that way. Like, oh, the first Iron Man, or no, but like you're like, oh, he like did stuff. The villain was created, and then he defeated the villain, so it's back to the status quo. And yeah, it kind of seems that way, but with movies like that, you get character development, and like Iron Man is a different person at the end of that film than at the beginning. Whereas this, there really isn't much of anything. At least it doesn't seem that way. Maybe things will be made clear that they have consequences. I think Kang was threatening consequences, like if you don't let me out, bad stuff's gonna happen. But like he wasn't out to begin with. They kept him in, and then he's not out to end the movie. So like nothing has changed other than the possibility has now been removed of him getting out to change things, I guess. And so they've eliminated that possibility. But that wasn't a possibility before because they weren't even in the quantum realm, and he wasn't getting out because he needed their technology. So like I don't know, it seemed kind of like a pointless movie for that, even though it was fun along the way, and we got to see more about Kang. So that's why I was hovering between a C and a B. Like, I don't know. It either, yeah, I just want, like, a movie should stand on its own. It felt like this was just a chapter in the larger stories in which they could introduce Kang, but it doesn't feel like its own movie. Not really. It doesn't feel like it could stand on its own two legs very well. Or at least if it had to, it wouldn't be all that good of a film. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a fun time at the movies, I would say go see it. If you're through this review, you probably have seen it because this is a spoiler review. I'd love to hear your thoughts, though, in the comments below. I think all the actors do a phenomenal job with these characters. I think they just could be written a little bit better. And I don't know. I still like the first Ant-Man the best of the trilogy. It was just, a little bit more low-key. I liked the heist vibe. They tried to bring the heist vibe into this. Like, oh, you got to steal this thing from me. Like, I don't, like, I'm... that part felt forced into it, and there's other things, too. Like, if Hope really understood the destruction... Like, Janet communicated to her what Kang was and what getting that would mean, and, like, without question, she's just helping Scott. And I don't know, it felt like that should have been more of a discussion as opposed to just helping him give the villain what he wants. I don't know. So there's little nitpicks like that. I think we'll wrap it there though. But I think for me, my favorite part was definitely that creature. I don't forget the name of it, but the creature without any holes, and who's super happy to have some holes later in the film. That was, I think, my favorite one. I did get excited there at the end when I was like, oh man, are they gonna kill Ant-Man? This is looking brutal for him. At least there'll be some consequences to this film. And then, but no, they didn't kill him. I'm like, okay, well if they didn't kill him, okay, I guess he's gonna get stuck in the quantum realm. But no, he got pulled right back, and like, yeah. So no consequences like that. It doesn't feel like the stakes were very high if there aren't any consequences. And if you're gonna claim to have an Avengers level movie, then you gotta have some consequences. Otherwise, it's really not Avengers level, in my opinion. But yeah, the some things that I liked, some things I didn't like as much. But I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this review, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe. And with that, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next review.